Ladies and gentle worms, welcome back to episode 14 of the State of Social podcast. We're back in action. It's a very happy Friday here. We have some exciting news to share about our team, actually, but we'll make you wait until the end to hear what that is. But we're coming in hot on this very hot Friday today to talk about a couple of things. One being, we're going to just get down to the nitty gritty and tackle a myth that we hear a lot as a social media agency, which is that social media is something that anyone can do on behalf of a business. And that's just straight up in our onion. It's not true. So we're going to talk about why and break down some of what we think is the value of hiring expertise in social media, whether that's an agency or an individual, over just treating it like a communications function that anyone can handle. And we're also going to talk about some hot news in the world of social that we've been seeing a ton about this week, which is a dastardly update on the TikTok sphere, the removal of UMG's music catalog from the platform. It's been stirring up our world this week. So we have a lot to say about both of these topics. So I think I'm just going to let us dive right in. But shall we?
Let's get into it.
Let's get loud. Let's get Gloria Estefan.
Keep
Anyone?
going.
I don't remember the rest of the words. Turn the music up.
Isn't
and
it just let's get loud?
Let's get. I feel like, speaking of social media,
loud.
I'm on cheerleading routine social media at the moment, like competitive cheer.
Oh, yeah.
Holy, I love it. I love so much about it. I wonder if they'll be impacted by this music removal, question mark.
Oh, agreed. I just got off
Before
of...
we do that.
I'm
Go,
not going to take us... No. I'm not going to derail us. I was just thinking about Ohio State's dance routine that they won at Nationals, and I just can't stop thinking about it. It's so good.
So good.
Anyway, keep going.
So clean. How did 48 of them do that? Okay.
I mean, and the ties and the... Oh, God.
And the beat.
Anyway.
Speaking of... So, okay. So this is a hot topic for a lot of reasons. I was actually having a discussion earlier this week about this very topic, which is social. Let's zoom out, right? Social media is new. When we put it, it's a communications function. When we put it next to PR, internal communications, media, advertising, when you put it next to all those, it is like a newborn baby, and they are all like elders in the space. And that is because social media platforms are so brand new. But I think if we even really want to like get nitty gritty, business use of social media is really new, because that didn't start until social media platforms were established. Facebook was people for a very long time. And then suddenly it was businesses, organizations, should we have a Facebook page? And if we're just talking Facebook as like the impetus, then think of all the other platforms. Twitter, Instagram, all of that. Speaking of the history, I don't want to like spend a million years here, but I think it's important to say, I remember like Twitter being like, it was like saucy that like Drake was on Twitter. I remember like when that was a thing, and like Nicki Minaj. I remember Instagram being like Taylor Swift's universe. Like she was always on Instagram, and that's
too
just
many
celebrities.
filters.
And so then we think about like once businesses make their way to social, that is so brand new. It's like less than 15 years old in terms of a practice. So if that's the case, then social media experts, the rise of social media as a career, as an expertise area, that's also brand new. And because of that, I think we hear and see a lot of intentional and unintentional rhetoric around the idea that social media is not something that requires the same level of expertise as advertising, as PR, as internal communications, etc., and that anybody, quote unquote, can do social media for a business. And it's worth talking about because as an agency, we're working in a space where, whether people know it or not, they have that opinion. And so we run up against that when we're pitching ourselves as experts, and when we're talking about the expertise that we bring to the table, which, I'll be candid, is the reason we can charge what we charge as an agency, because we're saying, hey, we're not just a bunch of jabronis clicking buttons. We have between all of us, a very deep bench of experience managing social for businesses successfully with a track record. And in other worlds, I think expertise cementing makes it easier to charge certain rates, but in social, it's harder because there is this misconception that anybody can do social, and so to be a social expert is not that hard, or, it doesn't require a secondary set of expertise. It just requires that you be young and somebody who knows how to work social like natively, because you grew up having a MySpace and an Instagram and a Facebook or whatever. And it's not true. It's just not true. And I think something that I can say like with confidence, and it's not shade to anybody who this applies to, but I think the biggest divide and misconception in this topic is that, and it relates, my brain is going 100 miles a minute because I've seen like LinkedIn posts about this all week long. The idea that like, if you just, I don't think this, but I'm going to profile like other people do, right? Like, we just need a young, hip 20-something girl who has a great personal Instagram to come and run our business Instagram, right? Because she knows how to use the tools and she knows how to work it, and she can do it for us. And I think there's a huge divide between the ability to run and manage your personal brand on social and your ability to manage a brand on social. They are two different ball games. I would actually argue they have zero relationship to one another. It's why I also think it's a stupid expectation that you should be able to go to your social media manager or your social media agency's own social and look at what they're doing there and base your opinions on their success or their strategic value based on what you see there. Because, spoiler alert, a lot of us are not doing that because we're spending our time every day in the business world. And that's not the same strategies that we would apply to our own spaces. So that doesn't count either. And also, the idea that social in general can be really effectively managed by one person. It's another huge myth. I just posted about this on LinkedIn this week. A social media manager is, to do the job by yourself, you play about 15 roles. And I can list them off. You're the copywriter. You're the graphic designer. At a minimum, you're telling a graphic designer what to design. So you've had to like plan a design. You're the researcher. You're doing data analysis. You're doing customer support if somebody's messaging the account asking for help. You're doing public relations. You're doing brand building because you're building the message that goes externally to an audience. You might be doing paid social, which is an entirely other subset of skills. You're project managing. You're doing a
directing, producing, editing content,
video editing, video creation, starring in the videos. All of these things lead me to say it's not anybody can do social. One person even, it's very hard to do social effectively. And all of this to say, the best way to outsource social media, if you're a business or a brand that wants to take it seriously and treat it like on the same level as other communications functions like advertising, PR, marketing, is to hire an agency. And so here's the rub, right? That should be what people want to do, hire an agency, because that's who can do it most effectively. They're also bringing a shit ton of outside expertise that they get from working with other clients and projects. But then when they hear the cost of hiring a social agency, they're like, ooh, to post on Instagram? I think not. Which is just, it's this huge issue in our industry at the moment. And I think it needs to be dismantled. So I'm going to shut up because I could talk about it all day, but like, this is where we are.
And I think our agency addresses this in two ways, right? One, well, maybe I should tee that up differently. There's two ways to approach convincing a company why it's important to have this kind of support in social and why it can't just be done by the youngest, most digitally online
savvy
person. Savvy person on the team. And one is to convince the decision makers of the company just that, like the value, why it's more than just posting, that it's strategy first, strategy driven. It's the strategies built on your business goals that are turned into social goals. Like there's so much of an iceberg that is to social media management and strategy that we have to explain to the decision makers. And then also how we tackle it is kind of explaining the importance to like HR and those kinds of people, why it's important to have their employees teed up. So like if you're going to spend money on social, right, you don't want it just to go out into the ether. You want your employees to be able to know what to do with that and be able to advocate for your company and your social efforts to the best of their ability. So it's kind of twofold because we also convince people that it's like, okay, great. Now you're spending money on social. Why the hell aren't you teaching your employees what to do with that content? And so that's like a whole other side of the gambit that we see too. Um, so my question, let me throw it to the group on this topic is we have to do it all the time. I feel like convincing even clients that we've had for a long time why, our prices are what they are. And when inflation happens and we have to increase them, it's like a little bit of a push and pull. But at the end of the day, what is your number one thing that you tell clients, or like the something we do for clients that we know they couldn't get if they didn't have that value? What's something you tell them, or like an example of a current client that does give us that trust, that doesn't question it? Like, what's a quality they have um, that you would wish other people would pull uh, out more in terms of that trust? I have one off the top of my head, but I'll let you guys answer first and we'll go from there.
Well, your first question around like what do you tell them to try and cement that, like what is the like bottom line value that being an external agency brings them, that it goes beyond just executing what they need. Like, yes, we are your social team, but what is that intangible? For me, it's that we are every individual member of this team is deeply embedded in a lot of spaces online as clients, like acting as our clients, and also as social media managers. So we consume a ton of information on social and other places about social. So we stay very much finger on the pulse. And I think
Mm-hmm.
more than any other element of communications functions, that is the intangible value that we bring to the table, which is that we do a immeasurable amount of legwork to understand not just how to be successful on social as a brand or a business today, but how to be ahead of what is literally a daily changing industry.
Yes.
That's not to say other communications functions don't change and update over time. I know they do. I was in the PR world, in a very different PR world 5 years ago than there is today, just based on changes to how people get information, right? So I'm not saying other places and other elements of communications don't change. Social can change literally overnight. There are each individual platform is its own ecosystem of best practices, updates, changes, standards, what you can and can't do in those places, what works and what doesn't work in those places. And to stay informed on all of that, not just, oh, I heard Instagram's changing its algorithm, but concretely, here's what's happening on these platforms and how it impacts
Mm-hmm.
users, brands, businesses, organizations. I cannot express enough how much unpaid time and energy we all spend staying the expert in those ways, because we don't get paid to scroll all day long to just learn and understand. We don't get paid to read white papers and research. I mean, we do in that it's baked into our rate, but like that's all stuff that we have to do on top of all the tactical of our job, which I know is true in all industries, but it cannot be as rapid as it is in social in every case, because social
Right.
is such a beast. And this is not a dig. There are social media managers out there who sell their services who have, for better or for worse, built a single approach to their work,
Mm-hmm.
to what they suggest clients do, to the strategies that they suggest for clients. And I'm sure they update that occasionally, but they sort of have like their drag. It's like you come to us and I drop you into our templated format, and then that's your strategy. We don't do that because we know how intimately and deeply these platforms can change and impact every client differently. And so for us to be able to build a very custom approach to every client we work with, we have to also be extremely, extremely online in all of these different industries, in all of these different platforms, understanding nuance, understanding what's coming, you know, from a social wide trend perspective, in order to, like, if we don't do all of that back end work, we cannot turn around and say, hey, new client who's in an industry that we've never worked in before, we can build you a strategy with confidence that we know backs up to your business goals and that we know will move the needle. We could not do that unless we did all of that other legwork. And not everyone wants to do all of that, and that's fine, but we do.
Yes.
And it's what we could never charge appropriately for, but it is what we
Mm-hmm.
try to account for when we're thinking about what we bring to the table. So that's like the biggest thing. And there's probably a more succinct way to say it, but this is a room of my peers, so I can be transparent and say it's just it's even hard to encompass in words, because you have no idea how much we're doing every
Yeah.
day
Well,
outside of nine
and
to five.
And point blank to that, like, yes, we're chronically online. We we're passionate about these subjects like outside of our jobs, and that's why we can bring so much energy and grit and expertise to our 9 to 5. But really, also at the end of the day, where the value comes in hiring a professional who, whether it's an agency or a person who is a strategist and has multiple clients, when you have somebody that's not, so I guess what we're talking about right now is in-house marketing versus having somebody, an agency, a manager come out
Yeah.
and do it for you. The difference between that is, and I worked in-house for social marketing for 3 years, and I did it, and I was able to put all the creativity that I put in our current clients there. But my God, it's like testing against a brick wall. Like, you can only test so much with one
Mm.
account,
Hmm.
with one target audience, with one branding, with like set of branding, with one set of graphics. Like, it takes extra long to see what works and what doesn't. Whereas when you have somebody or an agency that works with many different clients
Yeah.
across many different industries at all times, they're testing things that they can find that works and then implement in your strategy. And like, we
Yeah.
would have never gotten there if we were just working on one strategy the whole time. And that, like, I can think of a million examples right now of times where we've had an aha moment with a certain client's strategy. And then we're like, oh my God, this would be great to implement for this, and this person. And then we
Hmm.
email them and they're like, yeah, let's do it. And all of a sudden we've plumped up 4 different client accounts with one tool that we figured out works because we could test it and we figured it out. So I think it's like, yeah, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, just that you get all the benefit of all the other clients we work with because
Uh-huh.
also too, like if you are running into a roadblock or there's something not
Mm-hmm.
working from your social strategy, there is like an 89% chance we've encountered it with another project, another
Mm-hmm.
client, and either have a perfect solution for you all ready to go or know the three things that can, move the needle for you. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
get all of that expertise that we've garnered through all of our other work when you're working with us.
Yep.
And to your point, it, it's so much of social is testing. And so we get testing of grounds on every single project that we work on. Whereas, yeah, going in house, like you can only test against yourself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, even for example, like even if someone is in house, but they are a personal creator, there's
Yeah.
value to that too. Like, they probably natively understand trends and things, which is really strong. And it's a great thing to bring to the table. But candidly, what they are testing and trialing with their, if they're personal socials or something they keep up, that's amazing. Their audience is probably not your customer base, right? It's
Yeah.
probably not the audience you speak
Yes.
to. So that doesn't even really bridge the gap, which it shouldn't. I also want to say, like, it shouldn't. Like, it shouldn't be expected that if somebody is a creator outside, that means they're
Yeah.
going to know how to speak to B2B industries and audiences naturally, because that's just
Yep.
not how it goes. But with us, that is our space. We are in client facing, external organizational facing social all the time.
Yeah.
And there's just no dollar sign you can put on that, I don't think.
And I think so, point blank to all this that we're saying is, because we understand at the end of the day, people that are experts, agencies, singular social media strategists, they deserve to be paid what they deserve to be paid. But just know, if you're going to keep it in house, you're going to have somebody doing it that's not an expert or not an agency or not a strategist specifically. It's like, for me, driving from Philadelphia to my hometown of Lancaster and only taking back roads, knowing that there's a full turnpike that I could be taking and it'd get me there a lot faster. Having a social agency or a strategist specifically hired to do your marketing and social management is like just taking the turnpike. No, it's like teleporting, actually. It's like not even having to get in the car and get on the road. And I think at the end of the day, like, again, it's okay if the budget's not there, but like, look at what else you're spending money on in the business. And if you're like hiring like a business coach or like whatever, no shade to that, but we've had clients that have, fired us because they put money into a business coach that told them, no, you can do this in house and blah, blah, blah. And like, XYZ, but then where are your goals coming to life then? And I can guarantee you, if you just put a little trust and a little pixie dust and a little
Hmm.
budget behind somebody that knows what they're doing, give it a year, you are going to start to see a lot more movement in that way in your digital footprint, making a lot more of a movement in your sales and in your business than just hiring like an in-house person that's just going to give you a basic digital footprint.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, it's like, what we're not also saying here is the obvious thing for me, but like it's worth saying. The actual work of social media management is really taxing. It is, if to do it right,
Yeah.
it's very tactical. It takes a lot of hands-on time, a lot of things that can't be handed off to AI or a machine or a robot to do. It's manual editing, writing, posting,
Mm-hmm.
optimizing, engaging. It's these things that straight up social media is not a magic like weird place that we don't know what works or what doesn't work. We know what works. And very often the difference is who has the time and energy and dedication to do the things that work and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And the value of hiring an agency team is that we know that, and we know that you don't have time for it, and we know that you don't want to do it. And we
Yes.
know that if you could have done it yourself, you would be doing it yourself. But it's a manpower thing, it's a labor thing. Like at the end of the day, you're not just transferring like the task of social to someone else. What you're doing is you're essentially hiring for someone to do the grunt work, the work that
Yes.
makes the difference, moves the needle, but that a lot of folks aren't going to do, especially someone who is social is like one part of a 4-part job description that they have to do, that they
Mm-hmm.
have other things on their plate. Like they shouldn't be able to do all of this because frankly,
Yes.
we can't do it one person. That's why we're an agency. We
Yeah.
can't do it can't just be me. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I started freelancing in social media thinking it would just be me. And it did not take long for me to realize that outside of maybe one project at a time, I couldn't do it all on my own.
Yeah.
Not to the level at which I knew it needed to be done in order to promise results and then deliver on them. So what you're actually getting also with an agency is straight up someone to do it for you because you don't have the time and energy to do it, and it's not gonna, you might be able to do the basics, but those additives, the things that actually lift the tide on a social strategy, the manual labor, the hard work that has to go into it,
Mm-hmm.
we take that from you, and we take that from an in-house person who doesn't have the time, and
Yes.
that's all the value, right? Like of working with a team like ours.
Yeah.
Straight up, we do
100%.
the shit shoveling. You don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We do the high level strategy and the creative vision and all of that amazing stuff, but we also sit and scroll on your TikTok for 15 minutes before and after we post your TikTok video for the day, and we engage on other people's posts, and we're commenting and we're monitoring your inbox at all hours of the day, and we're figuring out which hashtags are working and which are not,
And we're
and
blocking your
we're
haters.
testing A/B testing your portfolio or your thumbnail imagery, and we're understanding which editing style works best, and we're diving into analytics. Like, and look, we're not going to tell you the nitty gritty of all that unless you ask, because you don't need to know. Like, you don't want to
Right.
know, I don't think, because you just want to know that it's doing what you need it to do for your business strategy, and we get that, and we will
Yes.
do it for you.
And
And we're
this
not
all
gatekeepers too, right? Like, I just wanted to flag, and Rhea, is like a question for you specifically, which is like we do a lot of expertise executing, like we execute on our expertise all the time, but we also are always willing to share and to pass that on. You mentioned like having your employees do things, so like we will train any number of people on your team to do any
Mhm.
element of social that they need to do, whether that's employee training or like your marketing team training to help them execute social in-house. We're not afraid to tell you
Yep.
what to do because we know it's not about secrets. There are no secrets. It's not like
Yeah.
we're giving away our trade secrets if we tell you what will work on social media. We just know that if it's a matter of doing it. So
Yes.
unless you do it, it's not going to matter. So we'll tell you all day long how to do it because we know how, and we want you to succeed, and we want you to do it too. And if that means
Yeah.
people in house doing it, we will train you.
And not
So
only will we train you, but we do train people. Just
yeah.
in the past 2 weeks, we did a 4 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour internal employee training. It was us and 9 employees at this one agency. And it was partially us kind of doing a little lecture on, LinkedIn specifically and how to be a good advocate on LinkedIn, down to like how to find inspiration if you want to post, like where to find that. And then we even did workshops during that training where we had them, rewriting their LinkedIn headline and, how to write a nice optimized post that tags people and really gets attention. Uh, then this week we were on the ground, boots on the ground, in New York, helping a client at a content shoot that they were leading. We empowered them to lead. We did a couple beforehand virtual calls where we prepped them, and then we were with them in person. showing them how to use the equipment, how to direct the shoot, how to direct the talent you're working with, all the way up to, showing them how to edit and what to do after. So we do this, and it's, let me give a caveat. This is not just like one big episode of us being like, we're the greatest and this is why you should hire us. We're doing one thing, busting the myth of why people don't think they need social agencies. But two, this is a space for us to kind of rant, because we've been doing this recently. So we're also here to rant and validate any social media managers or agencies out there that, like, on the daily have to both do their job and also defend their job. It can get a little exhausting. And so we're here to say, we see you, we hear you. And if you're not one of those people, listen to us and know that we mean what we say.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, there are people overcharging in this world. I'm going to tell you right now.
Oh, yeah.
There are people who don't deserve to be paid what they're charging. That's not shade at all, because I think everyone knows who I'm talking about, which is the like, we'll make you 12 Instagram posts for $300. Just pay us right now and we'll send them
And their
back to you
shitty
right
Canva
away.
templates.
That's not social strategy. That's
Nope.
content creation.
That's throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks.
So don't get me wrong. I think that there is plenty of pushback to be had, particularly on price gouging in this world. But there are real agencies out there doing things for basically free, really, if in terms of the value you get out of them, and they deserve to be paid, and that includes us. And I will also say we have a lot of people who get that too, and that's incredible. Especially partners who get it and understand and are also in this world. So we're very lucky in a lot of ways, but like point blank, you cannot just hire your somebody's niece to come in and do social and expect it to have impact on your business bottom line. That's what I'll say.
And so to round this off, we will say, first of all, hire the experts. Just do it. We promise you won't regret it. And if you do, come fight us in the ringer. Don't care. I'll take you. I'll put up the dukes. If you are going to stay in-house and not hire the experts, and you're going to hire somebody within your team that is social savvy, fucking pay them appropriately, pay them well, pay them extra, and don't just give them a little stipend, a little bonus. Pay them for their hours, because that is a lot of work. And at the end of the day, if you're hearing this, whether you're on a marketing team or you own a business or you're a social manager, whatever your position is, we're also here. We love to talk about this stuff. Come put a call on our calendar, like consult with us for an hour, do a VIP day, hire us for just 3 months to help with the strategy and audit, whatever you need. We're here for you. We love this stuff, and we're willing to talk about it and help you figure out how to make it easier for you too. How about our next topic, friends?
Alrighty, let's
you
get
guys
into
this crazy
music group taking their music off of TikTok.
Yeah, how about that? I thought it was a JK. I thought it was a big old just Joshin.
Nope, Universal said, we're done. We're not doing that. And it was like, I just want to say, like, we knew about it in advance. Like, they were saying that it was going to happen. I think it was on the 30th of January.
Yeah.
The way it was overnight, y'all.
Overnight, yeah. And it's, I've seen Alex Earl posting, like, how stupid do half my videos look now? They're just me dancing, and they look even more dumb. Down to artists who are signed with Universal Music Group who are like, are you fucking kidding?
Yeah.
Where is all my music, and how am I supposed to promote it now? Down to artists that are like, hell yeah, now's my time to rise. I'm an indie artist and I'm going to promote my music now. So all kinds of reactions. I think the music industry has proved that it is not here for its artists. It's not here for artist promotion. It is here for themselves. So I'm not surprised this happened. But boy, is it creating quite a mess. How are you all? What are you all seeing over there?
I mean, half of my TikTok, personally, my TikTok videos are muted, which is really, really annoying. But in my head, it's just like, okay, because a lot of the times I make videos for clients and put audio over it before even posting it to TikTok. And a lot of the times, like, Instagram allows you to post audios, and it's always fun. But, that comes down to like an issue with cross posting. So I have to change the audio now, which is just frustrating. And
it's also like not common knowledge. Like, I couldn't I know from the list that went around the day it was happening of who's signed on to Universal Music Group, but it's not like we all know common knowledge, like, oh shoot, no more this person. Like
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
you just happen to find it and you're like, oh fuck, that's
Yeah,
another one bites the dust. You know what I mean?
Well, and I
yeah,
know that the like impetus of it is that they weren't able to renegotiate a contract with TikTok, I guess.
yeah. TikTok didn't
To
want to pay them more.
Which is fair enough, but I think, and I will say this knowing that I haven't looked into it, but like that is a contract with Universal Music Group, not with the artists. So like the artists aren't
Yeah.
necessarily going to benefit from a renegotiation per se.
Hmm.
So that sucks. And also, it's very interesting because I think like I don't know that UMG will. I don't know that UMG is thinking far enough ahead to say what does this do for our artists who need to promote music. And record labels I know for a fact have been screaming, get on TikTok, get on TikTok. You got to promote your
Yeah,
song on TikTok. Well, their marketing teams can't say that now at the moment because they can't. I mean, they can, but they can't play the official songs, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I feel like it's one of those decisions that's coming from the top down, and there's like it's this big giant versus big giant, UMG and TikTok, but the ripple effect is very different for everybody internally, from marketing teams who have to like not use this as a tactic, to artists who have to like rethink what this looks like for them, to creators who might have been working with artists in the UMG space. Like,
Yeah.
it's all of these things. I do think I one thing I know to be true is that creativity is born out of constraint at all times. I'm already starting to see some of that. And I think it's a cool thing that in the face of
Yeah.
some adversity, particularly artists, like it's neat for them to be like, my music's not here anymore, so now I can like do an acoustic version of it, and they're just like
yeah,
performing their own
Yeah.
music or whatever that looks like. And I think that's really fun. I've been loving seeing people's content creators who are like, since this song's not on here, here's my version of it, and they're just like singing it really bad.
Trisha
And
Paytas has been doing that.
yes, it's so fun, and I love that. But um, I think for us too, it's like one of those things where, Michaela, you started touching on it, like making client videos and stuff. Like, this is a piece of news that like theoretically shouldn't really impact us, but like is something we have to educate ourselves on, because we have to turn around and say,
Yeah.
oh, oops, sorry, client, here's why 3 of your videos are muted all of a sudden, and have a plan for if they need to be like adjusted or whatever. Also,
Hmm.
to say like, here's how this, if it comes up in conversation, we have to be armed enough to say, here's how this could or couldn't impact you as a brand or business who's creating on these spaces.
yeah,
So it's just like an interesting one, because it's like, here's another example of where it's like consumer wise we have thoughts, and then we also have to have strategist thoughts about what it means
Hmm.
for the impact of social media, which is everything. We always have to have two takes,
yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Like for one of our clients, they specifically they like and save specific audios for us to use, which is great and super helpful. But now having to like, go and explain to them that we're gonna be using just music that we can use.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be the best, but
Yeah.
that's just it.
I still don't believe that it's gonna continue. I feel like they'll let it.
I
They'll
think
make it. They'll come back and they'll unmute it. I don't know how that's gonna work. Like, will they be unmuted? Will you have to re-upload and then every future song will be fine now? Like, I'm curious how this will play, but I don't believe that this will continue. There's no way,
they'll
or
have
else
to come
artists
to
will stop signing with
negotiations.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
I also think it's not the same, but we often recommend for businesses and brands who have a presence or want a presence on TikTok, we will recommend not being a business account, because we want them to have access
yep,
to all
yeah,
available audios, which you are significantly
100.
limited as a business.
yep,
You can only use royalty-free licensed audio. We often do that for the case of like trending sounds, because we want people to be able to jump on trends and leverage that audio, which is not available to business accounts. But this is part of that too. If popular songs are not available to anyone, it's dwindling down the reasons to not be a business account, to
yeah,
Yep.
now it's just sort of trending audios that you would still have access to. So it's interesting, and other obviously record labels, but
Yeah.
it's interesting because it's like, even, if this is a one-off thing, it's a one-off thing. If it's a trend and a lot of labels start to pull music, maybe there isn't a benefit to being it just has implications, I think, that like we as
Yeah.
social media managers are thinking about, but like the average person's probably not.
Yep.
It's a wild ride.
I know. We'll definitely circle back on this topic as it, if anything changes, because this is something we definitely have a pulse on. And to Paige's point, it doesn't totally hinder us. I mean, none of our clients are artists in Universal Music Group. If that was the case, we would definitely have to pivot. But it doesn't hinder us too much. However, it is huge news. And like, for example, last week's analytics across the board for all of our clients were low performing, low engaging on social. And I can't help but to think that had something to do with the massive effect that this had.
When there's disruption, and this is disruption of any kind, we see trickle down impacts even on completely unrelated accounts. And it's just because the space in which that content is performing is disrupted. So that doesn't not impact our clients.
I remember when
one-to-one, but
like that happened to the last time that happened was when Twitter changed its name to X. I remember that week we had a lot of low engagement and weird analytics across the board. And then remember when Instagram and Facebook went down for like 9 hours last year? That was another week where, I mean, obviously analytics were hindered that day because there was 9 hours of nothing. But it's crazy to like, when something makes a big impact, it really does trickle into all platforms. So just a listener question there. I'm interested if anybody other social media managers out there saw a difference last week in analytics because of that, or how you're handling, if this is impacting you or how you're handling it. I'm interested to know. Yeah. Any final thoughts on this one, guys?
Weigh in.
Yeah, weigh in. DM us on our Instagram, which will be linked in the description.
Amazing. And now to our final topic of the podcast, our big announcement. You'll notice there's only 3 of us. And for the next few months, there will only be 3 of us because we have a mother on team. Steph had her baby safely and healthily this week. So we introduce our first baby of Kylie Social and Hive Connective. Her name is Margot May. And she came in, and I forget what her stats were, but she was healthy.
All you need to know is she's cool. She's here and she's cool.
She's
and
so
Steph's
cool.
Great. So we will be sans Steph for a few episodes as she's taking much deserved mom time.
Yes.
Figuring out life with the baby. We're so thrilled for her. This has been so cool to watch, like not just a colleague, but a friend, like go through this experience. So everybody say hey to Margot.
Big cheers to Margot. Ooh.
Can't wait to put her in her first Kylie Social onesie.
Oh my, you know it. We got to get a Chronically online bottle made, like our Tumbler.
Yeah.
Baby bottle, little pacifier with the little melt emoji on there. I don't know. New baby collection coming soon. But congratulations to Steph if she's listening to this. Everybody send her your digital flowers. And that is episode 14, baby.
That's a wrap.
See you next week.